Buenas tardes. Antonio Rengel de Canal Sur.
Good evening. Would you like to have that the feeling was of less superiority for the game tomorrow and not to have the feeling in general that it's going to be an easy game for Spain? Good evening. We can't control the feeling of that is what's going on outside of the dressing room. What we in the dressing room, we don't see it as an easy game at all. We are sure it's going to be very complicated. They've grown so much since we faced Georgia in the group stage. In the qualification stage, and it's not going to be easy at all. I have maximum respect for all my rivals, and we're going to have to play a really good game tomorrow in order to have an option to win. I'd like to know if there are going to be any changes in the first 11, if Olmo could be starting after his great game tomorrow, or if you're not going to touch your first 11. Well, we'll see how all my players feel. Everybody was feeling great today. And any substitution, any change, it's not out of a whim, like I always say. It's all regarding a game plan and analyzing our rivals, etc., and seeing how my players feel during the week. Everybody's perfectly fit, and they all give me 100% guarantee. So I know all of them are ready for contention tomorrow, and we'll see who I play. This morning during training, I saw you got the whole squad together around you and you gave them a message. Would you mind telling us what you told them about the game at hand? Well, we normally do a thing like that, like do like a group, like get together. And well, I told them that we are going to see a different Euros now. We need that good feeling on all I wanted from my players. At the end of every training session, I always say thank you to my players, and we'll talk about what can be improved. But what I want from them now is maximum intensity, maximum concentration, facing the game tomorrow, which is the most important game so far for us. I wanted to ask you about Lamine Yamal, who has played quite a few games for the national team, Clásicos, Real Madrid v Barcelona, etc. But this could be his first big final, with the national team. I don't know if you said something to him or how you see him. Well, I talk to him a lot, every day. Of course, he has a special attention because of how young he is. We know we treat him as one more player in the squad, but we have to pay special attention to him because he's only 16. But then on the football pitch, he shows a kind of matureness that is not, it's got beyond his years. But we are trying to give him some training, not as a footballer, but also as a person. Just help him learn, not only a footballer, but also as a person. So from that Georgian team that you faced a few months ago, and you scored 7 goals against in Georgia, and you scored 3 goals against them in Valladolid, is it comparable, or has it got anything to do in different tournaments? Well, no, tomorrow's game is going to be a totally different game. I think we all have improved. Georgia has demonstrated it, has proven it. I think it was Willy Sagnol, that he said this morning that thanks to that game, they were here, because it's all a learning process, right? A learning curve. They've had theirs, we've had ours. So it's going to be a totally different game to the 2 games two matches we played against them in the qualification stage, and tomorrow any mistake will be heavily penalized, and so we need huge respect for our opponents, and they just beat Portugal 2-0. That proves they are a very dangerous team.
Tobias from Norway, NRK. It's been written that people under 18 years are not allowed to work, including showers and media, after 11 p.m. in this country. What do you know about this rule when it comes to Yamal, and can you confirm it didn't get any consequences after the Albania match?
No sé, no conocía la legislación alemana.
I didn't know the German legislation, to be honest. As for the workforce, we are going to, if we have to take him off the pitch at 11:02, we will have to. I'm joking, of course, but no, he's here to play a game and to enjoy with his work. We don't think about anything else, to be honest. That doesn't really matter for us. Today is Saint Peter. I don't know. It's a festivity in where you're from, in La Rioja, and I don't know if you've gotten many messages. Then that first time Lamine and Nico played together, I don't know if that changed the dynamics of the team. Well, as for the wine and my place, I recommend it to all of you if you can go there and check the festivity of the wine. As for the game you're referring to, it was a very important game for us. It was a situation, there was a situation of tension around the national team, but then we proved at that game that we were a very, very tight team, very united, and we started using this term of the family. We lived through very emotional moments, in which situations we had to live through. But we came out very strong out of that after that. And as for Lamine, of course, it was really a beautiful day for him, his debut. But this has only started. He's got all his life ahead of him, and we hope we can enjoy his football for many years with Spain. Italy has just fallen against Switzerland. Germany is playing tonight, and England are playing tomorrow. On paper, everybody said there were some of the teams were favorites, but you can see that that doesn't always happen. Do you think that what you are going to watch and what you have seen so far, can you use it as motivation or to realize what the reality of football is? Yes, of course. We have all seen many surprises in football. It's not the question of being favorites against Georgia or not. It's just the way football is, and I think we'll keep seeing situations like that. Like I said again, Georgia beat Portugal, and that proves that they have potential to overcome any opponent. And it's a game, it's 90 minutes, anything can happen. So as a conclusion, we need to play at our best football. We need to keep improving in order to have chances to win that game. And obviously thinking that we are very eager and we have very high hopes about this competition, but as maximum respect for Georgia. I've seen so many things in football, and I'm sure I'm going to see many more surprises in football. There's results, you see all sorts of results, and you never know what's going to happen on a football pitch. I wanted to ask you about what you've been working this week in order to try and minimize or try to control Georgia's best virtues, which is playing quickly with the forwards from their goalkeeper. How have you worked that sort of situation with your players? Yes, that's one of the main virtues. They're really fast in counter-attack, in transition. They've gotten quite a few goals, not only in this tournament, but also in the qualification games. And that's one of their virtues, of course. We need maximum attention. We need to keep very tight on their players. And of course, if we have more possession than them, of course, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to really be aware that they are very fast on the counter-attack. They have really worked on that. And that could be, yeah, one of their main virtues, but they have other virtues. They are really good players with dead balls. They have some really tall players. So we need to be aware of every little detail of the match tomorrow. The other day, you gave some minutes. You had some of your central defenders playing half of the game, and half of the game was played by Lenormand, and the other half was played by Laporte. So how was this to do with resting players or about the yellow cards? Well, no, we wanted to take care of the physical state of all my players. We wanted to play them all for 45 minutes. Well, of course, we couldn't do that. You have a limit, but you have to make a decision at a certain point. It was all normal. You know, we wanted fresh legs in all lines. And every game is important. The most important game in the Euros so far is the game at hand tomorrow, and we are going to play our best possible team. We're not going to think of yellow cards or anything like that. You know, it's if a player gets a yellow card, well, it's a circumstance of the game. We have many good players, and if we can't count on one, we will count on another player. So that's not. We are really confident in this respect that we can play any player.
Buenas noches, Mr. De La Fuente. I hope that you don't feel pain in your foot and everything is all right. By the way, yeah, you reminded the game 1-7 in Tbilisi. By the way, I was an announcer on that day on Dinamo Arena, so it's not very comfortable. Okay, the question is like this. What are your thoughts about entire Georgian football, not only the national team? And what would you say about Mr. Saniol? Because you have one thing in common. Both of you have worked in under-21 teams of respectively in your own nations. You for La Roja and Mr. Saniol for under-21 team of France. So how would you evaluate his work and for Georgia? Thank you very much.
Well, I recommend you to watch videos of when I used to play football, and those were tackles. What happens today is a joke. Come on, the kicks you got back then, you know. But I know Georgian football really well, because since 2015, I've known different generations of Georgian players that we've had to play and with different youth teams, and I've realized the growth of Georgian football, and you can see an evolution in national players, and Georgian players are now playing in different leagues in Europe, so they have reached an important level. As for Saniol, I think he's an impressive, fantastic national team coach. He's done a fantastic job with Georgia, and he's very experienced in the world of football. I have a great relationship with him, and I'm really happy that he's doing so well. I wanted to take you back to the 19th of November, to Zorrilla, Valladolid, where Gavi had this infamous injury against Georgia. I don't know if you've spoken to Gavi, and you have invited him over, if you have a message to send to Gavi. because he seems to be recovering now. We'll see him on the pitch very soon. Well, Gavi's, this is the national team is Gavi's home, of course. Of course, we have received supporting messages from him. We are really glad to know about him. He hasn't been able to come here for different reasons, of course, but he's one of us. Everybody loves him here. The doors are open for him to come back anytime, and I hope he can come to see us in any of the games. If we can keep going, of course, we would love to see him.
Thank you. A question in English, please. I'm from Xinhua News Agency. Good evening, Mr. De La Fuente. We know Spain is regarded as the best team in this tournament so far with their beautiful and attacking football style. And tomorrow is the knockout stage. Will your side continue to press high and play with the style? Because just as you mentioned, Georgia has very good transitions and counter-attacks, which could pose threat to your side. Thank you.
Well, in principle, we need to keep strengthening our strength. We need to play on what we do best. We'll try to keep improving what we do best. Our offensive phase, I think we're good there. We have different registers, and we'll try to play the same way, among other things, because our footballers demand that to play that sort of style, because that's the natural conditions, of course. And as for what you said before, in Georgia, we have to be very careful with Georgia's strengths, of course. It doesn't mean that we are going to alter our game plan in order to adapt to our opponent, but we need to be really aware of really focused, because they are really dangerous in transition, like I said before. So this is what I'm trying to make my players be convinced that it's going to be a difficult game. It's going to be like that. Hi, Coach. You said, Mamardashvili said in the last few hours that as a Georgian, Kvaratskhelia is better than the whole of the Spanish national team. What would you say to him? Well, he is one of the best. Mamardashvili is one of the best goalkeepers in Europe. I haven't heard Mamardashvili's statements, but I think that's totally fine. He has to defend his teammates, and he is a top player, of course, Kvaratskhelia. I also think that our players are the best in the world, and I say that with utmost respect for everybody else, but I do believe that our players are the best.
Hola, Luis. José Carlos Carabias de ABC.
You already said more than once, but I don't think there are going to be many more Spanish players, Spanish fans present. Despite what you've done, how do you see that? Well, we'll see tomorrow the number of fans that are traveling. We have felt very much supported by our fans so far. You know, you've been to many tournaments before, and you know how many fans travel, more or less, according to what we've been said. It's one of the highest amounts of traveling fans in Euros, for Spain, in Euros or even World Cups. We're really happy about our fan support. They show their support daily in our base camp, and of course their support. Would we like them to see more of them? Yes, of course. If we keep playing, we would surely see more fans around. But we can see unconditional support from our fans, and we feel them very closely. During this Euros, in that first stage, the Spanish national team has given us surprise because of their offensive game, how attractive it was, the dynamism on the wings with Lamine Yamal and Nico. But obviously, with every game, defenses are going to make it tougher for them to play like that, right? So before the game tomorrow, are they ready for a really complicated game against Georgia? Well, I don't think any of the matches so far has been comfortable. I think we have had to work very hard to beat any of our rivals. So it's their own credit, it's the players' own credit that we could manage to beat these rivals. So it's going to be more or less the same tomorrow. We expect kind of the same thing tomorrow or in subsequent games if we manage to play them. So of course, when your opponents get to know you, they try to organize their defense in order to try to stop your best players. But we have proven our ability to keep growing, keep learning, and to use the individual talent that we have in order to surprise our opponents. I still think we have many room for improvement, and we haven't seen the best version of our footballers because there's so much to offer. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
The last one, please. Thank you.
¿Qué tal, Robin? Iván Martín de OK Diario. Tras una Eurocopa donde no era
After a Euros in which a tournament in where you weren't favorites, I think you are favorites now, and everything that is not defeating Georgia would be a really hard blow for Spanish sport. How do you assimilate all this? How do you live it in the dressing room? You've been speaking about this 1-7, that 3-1 in Valladolid against Georgia. How do you deal with that in the dressing room? Well, we don't really listen to what is said outside the dressing room, outside our base camp, because at the end of the day, before the Euros, nobody thought we were favorites. Now you do, and you think that we practically have to win this. But I believe we have to keep a cold head and face the match as the same way that we've done so far in the qualifying stage and the group stage. Very, with our feet on the ground, really focused into the game and going out there to give it all on the pitch.
Hi, Frederick from Agence France Presse. The theme of dual nationality is now a subject in France, but I'm not going to ask you about the political situation there. Just for you, your last games, the way you played and the way Spain has done well, do you take that also as a response to all the critics when you chose to play for Spain instead of France?
Bueno, yo creo que siempre le he dicho, no iba a convencer a todo el mundo. Yo, como siempre he dicho también, es que como me siento yo. Y siempre he dicho también, no voy a olvidar mi pasado, donde me he criado.
My past as a Frenchman. I grew up in France, of course. My parents are from there, but of course, I've been in Spain for 9 years. I became a footballer there. I've been allowed to fulfill my dream, and beyond all that, I grew up as a person in Spain. When a kid arrives in a different country at 18 years old and he spends 8 years in the Basque Country, surrounded by all that people who trusted me in a spectacular way, well, I think we have to value that as well. And of course, when you get a phone call from the coach, the national team coach, and they show their confidence in you, I think that, of course, that too has to affect my decision. I imagine it's going to be a big success from your club, Real Sociedad, having so many players coming out from Zubieta in the national team. What does your club do in order to have so many players here with the national team? And on the other hand, it's a success for defenders in the whole of the squad, not to having conceded a single goal in these Euros. Yeah, it says a lot about what's being done in Zubieta, in the training grounds of Real Sociedad, having 5 players from La Real here. Of course, it's very important. 3 are from the academy, from the Real Sociedad academy. That says a lot about the club. And the second question was? Oh, yeah. Well, the statistics speak for themselves about the not conceding a goal. That doesn't speak only about the defensive line, but about the whole squad, about the whole team, because your defense could be very good, but if people up front are not focused, are not committed, you will concede goals. So that says a lot about our group, of our work rate, our commitment. And that's the way to go. We need to keep on playing that way.
Hola, Romain Lafont para el diario L'Équipe. Decías el año pasado que te
You said last year that it would be very odd to speak French when you spoke football. Is it the same thing when you speak to Aymeric Laporte, or does it feel weird? Do you speak English, Spanish or French with Laporte, on or off the pitch? Well, sometimes I have spoken French, but I never speak French on the pitch with him. Sometimes at base camp, we hardly speak in French because it's not natural for us to speak French between us. On the pitch, I grew up in Spain. I learned how to play in the first division in Spain, in Spanish. So that's the language I use on the pitch because that's how I feel comfortable. I wanted to ask you, when you took the step to play with the national team, it was exactly to be in this type of game, in this type of tournaments. Do you feel satisfied about your decision and about what you're doing now? Well, it's any player's dreams. It's every player's dream. I didn't know I was going to get here or win a title or anything. Well, that's what you work for, but there's very few people that have have the chance to win titles with the national team. So I'm lucky enough to be in these Euros, and I'm really thankful. The only thing I can do is to keep working on the pitch, giving it all day by day, to try and keep growing, keep learning, and give the confidence back to the national coaches. Thinking that you are one of the best central defenders in the world and in the league, do you think you are better when you play with Laporte? Do you think that playing with Laporte makes you a better central defender? Well, thank you for your kind words. But I think that with Aymeric Laporte, we've been played quite a few games together, and we have a special understanding, a good connection. But I also do have that connection with Nacho and Vivian, because in the end, that's what happens when you are surrounded by players who are really good. And all those three central defenders are really good. And they help me a lot, so it doesn't. So I just want to keep having that complicity, that special connection between all of us, because that helps the group very much, and that's that. We've seen two players have said that are going to change teams in the Spanish national team, Joselu and Nacho. Are you going to be the third? Are you going to Atletico Madrid? Well, I'm sorry that you used your your turn for this question, but like I always say, I'm focused in the Euros, in the national team. It's a huge challenge ahead of us, and I think we will have enough time after this to talk about clubs, etc. The national coach mentioned that 1-7 game in Georgia. Not so much about the game, but like how important it was after a difficult situation. And he was saying you came out stronger after that game. How do you remember everything around that game and how important it could have been that day for you? Well, I do agree with the national coach. It was a very important game for us, and we did things really well on that night. Scoring 7 goals is no mean feat. It's not easy at all. But I think we need to keep a cool head, because of course it's obvious that on that day we did we played almost a perfect match. We conceded a goal, but we scored 7. But it's going to be a completely different game tomorrow. It's a European Championship. They have had much more time to work and keep improving. And tomorrow it's round of 16. We have to keep that mentality. It's going to be a complicated game, but we have a lot of confidence, of course, in our possibilities, because we have proven that we are in a good moment right now, without conceding goals in 3 games, etc., with attractive football. So we have that sort of confidence, but we also need to keep a cool head, our feet on the ground, knowing that it's going to be a complicated game for sure. You told my colleague that it was a waste of a question, but of course I imagine that if you are postponing that decision, it's because you don't want to be distracted with anything. And of course, the colleagues that have made a decision, do you think they could be distracted? Yeah, well, that's a good question then. No, each to their own, you know. So the 2 people who announced their change are highly experienced players, and that's not going to affect them in the slightest. So they're all free to communicate their decisions whenever they want. I wanted to ask you about the pitch. It might rain all night, and I don't know if you're worried about that. But also, if you are going to be in the first 11, you are going to have to play the Georgian forward, who is better than the whole national team, according to their goalkeeper. How do you feel about that? Is it a big responsibility for you? Well, I don't know who said that. Oh, the goalkeeper. Well, they have plenty of confidence, and they have a very high opinion of his teammates, of course. But we have to focus on what we do, on our game, on how we will try to keep possession, how are we trying to hurt Georgia, and that's what we are focused on. I wanted to ask you, for a central defender who has seen a yellow card and who has to face a game where some other teammate has seen a yellow card too. Some of them have had minor injuries, etc. How do you face the game tomorrow, playing against such fast players as the Georgian forwards? How do you think? Do you have any reservations? No, I just think about the game at hand. I just think about the game tomorrow. So first, we have to see if I will be on the pitch or not. And then if the game calls for a foul, or if the referee thinks that foul is a referee, well, it's football, right? So we have a very complete squad. Every player that played against Albania, we didn't see the team lowering their level against Albania. We have an incredible group. Anything can happen, and we'll see what happens on the pitch.
Hello, Irakli Medadze, Sedanta Sport Georgia. The question to Mr. Lenormand. The only goal you have scored for La Roja, it was against Georgia. No, of course, you mentioned that already, that tomorrow it will be a totally different game. What are your expectations for Georgian footballers? And by the way, the best top scorer for nowadays, it's Georgian, Georges Mikautadze. He's enrolled in France, like you. And would you talk to him on French if he'll start like this? Thank you very much. That's all.
Muchas preguntas.
So many different questions. Let's see. Yeah, if he scored 3 goals, Mikautadze has a lot of quality. He had proven it in the group stage. He has proven it in the group stage. We've seen him in those 3 games. We know that even if it's Mikautadze or the other forwards, they are high quality players. So we need to be focused and keep an eye on them because they have really good transitions, like we said before. And we will try to take the game to our strengths, to our game. Take the match to our game. And I forgot what the other question was. Oh, no, I don't normally speak to other people on the pitch, to be honest, about with the opponents on the pitch. It's a bit far away, but there is a possibility of playing France in the semi-finals. I don't know if you've imagined yourself doing that, and if you would be mentally prepared for a game like that, as if it was a normal club match, or would you be emotionally, would you have some sort of emotional problem there? Well, that would be a semi-final, so I wish we could reach that semi-final one day, and if that happens, it would be a beautiful game, because you always want to play the best players in the world, and they have some of the best players, and that would be a semi-final, again, a very important match. But we have the game at hand tomorrow, so before thinking of that semi-final, we of course need to try to beat Georgia, and that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.